What if I told you that the secret to professional looking content costs $0? Most people think you need a massive budget to create professional looking video content, but that's just not true. And I want to show you how to plan, shoot, and even DIY your own content before you decide to spend all that money on a videographer, like myself. And by the end, you'll know when it's time to bring in a videographer and how to get the most out of your budget when you do. Over the last 10 plus years, I've worked on things from indie shoots to corporate campaigns. So I understand that there are common things that you're going to run across in every video you do, no matter what video you're creating. First, we're going to start with planning your project. Then we're going to move on to the basics of production. And last, we're going to wrap it up and help you figure out when it's time to bring in a pro. But by then, you'll know what to expect and how to get the most out of your budget and your time, so you can walk away with actionable things you can use right now. At a moment's notice, we've been kind of trained in our modern world that anything can become a video and everything is okay. And that's sometimes true, but a lot of times it's not. For the purposes of this video, I'm gonna say that's a terrible mistake, and here's why. Every project, like big or small, needs planning. Ask yourself these 3 questions before you start filming. First, who is your audience? Are you talking to TikTokers? Are you talking to Instagram? Are you making reels? Or are you making a full-on, 3-hour podcast? The reason it's important to know who you're talking to is because it changes everything from your tone, your pacing, your style, even the words that you use. Make sure you do what's best in order for you to create and connect with your audience. Second, let's talk about what is your goal? Are you creating this just for views, for fun, for money, for sales? Your goal determines your approach, and that is a huge building block for how we're going to plan and make the most out of time and budget. The third thing to think about is, what does success mean? How are you going to measure this? Is it views? Is it clicks? Is it conversions? Honestly, if you're not measuring something, you're never going to know what works. Can you imagine a golfer going out, a professional, and they don't keep track of their score? It just wouldn't make sense. How do they know how well they're doing? So remember, who the heck are you talking to? What are your goals? And how are you going to measure success? So now that we have a plan, let's talk about the 3 big production mistakes that are so common amongst people who are starting video or want to get into video more. As somebody who spent so much time making videos, the number 1 mistake that will separate you from your colleagues or other people around you making bad videos is lighting. So here's a couple really quick, easy things that'll get you from really bad lighting to pretty good lighting. Most video right now is still technically a 2-dimensional experience. It's different than painting because it's moving, but ultimately the goal of your lighting should be to create depth. We want to make it easier for our viewer to perceive depth, not just see everything as a flat image. The first simple thing that I would say is, if you can, shoot near a window. A window is going to give you generally some soft light because the sun is free, and usually the light that comes through your window is a little bit softer. Try to avoid like the light that comes in on a bright sunny day, known as direct light. We want light that's kind of bouncing off of the ground, or it's a little softer. And the reason is it's just more flattering. There's less hard edges and things that could distract from whatever message you're trying to say. The other thing that I see a lot of that I would try to avoid is high contrasts in light. So for example, if you're shooting where the sun is actually behind you and your camera is looking into the light, then you're gonna just be washed out and be like a shadow. And the background is what your camera is gonna want to see or expose for. Whatever has the most light is gonna be the most prominent in your image. And we all know that things like ring lights or LEDs that you can get anywhere online now are getting cheaper and cheaper. And the light quality is actually not so bad. So do yourself a favor and do a little bit of research and you'll find some really good options. Comment below if you're looking for some options for inexpensive lights and what situation you're trying to film for, and I'd be happy to make some recommendations. Okay, let's move on. Now that you're an expert at light and you're gonna be a Renaissance painter with your lighting, one of the biggest factors, if not the biggest factor in a video, isn't sometimes the video itself, it's the audio. If your audio is really bad quality, if it's distracting, no matter what you're trying to tell your audience, they're going to be distracted by how terrible the audio sounds. You could have the most expensive camera in the world with the highest resolution, the best cinematographer ever, but if your audio is bad, it's going to be difficult for your viewer to not just be distracted by it. Our ears actually require tens of thousands of samples per second to not be fooled. So how do we make sure that our audio is going to be killer for our videos? Well, obviously a microphone is going to be your best bet. A microphone and a recorder. And there are literally hundreds, maybe thousands of different microphones and audio recorders out there, and there isn't one that's going to be perfect. But to get the ball rolling for you, and because I promised that you'd get some actionable things you could do today, here's the free and simple budget-friendly thing to do. The first thing would be your phone. Smartphones have microphones and recorders all up in there. An iPhone has saved me on multiple occasions when I've had to run and figure out a last-minute recording solution. Once you have that recording, regardless of what it is, if it's on a device like an iPhone or something that's improvised, I highly, highly, highly recommend Adobe Podcast or Adobe Enhance. It's a tool that Adobe has, and it's free for Adobe users, and I'm pretty sure that it would come with any trial. But essentially, it's kind of like an audio mastering tool that uses AI to improve the sound of your voice or whatever you're recording. This can turn a really bad recording into a very, very professional sounding, or even if it's really bad, it could save your recording from just going in the trash and scrapping your whole video. Aside from the quick phone trick and audio enhancing, the other thing that's important to know with audio is avoid the wind like the plague. Avoid it as much as you can, because if your microphone is not designed to handle the wind, you're just gonna hear, and nobody wants to listen to that ever. And as good as the AI tools are getting that enhance audio and make things better, they still haven't quite been able to fix those audio issues. So just something to consider. All right, so now that you've got the perfect lighting, the perfect sound, I want you to think about the last thing, which is framing and stability. Thankfully, phones that we all carry all the time, and even small cameras like GoPros, have become insanely good at stabilization and even framing stuff for us. But let's say, for example, you're a videographer or someone making a video with a DSLR or a camera that doesn't necessarily have the best stabilization. I would recommend these few things. Make sure that in your frame, there's room for your audience to experience whatever it is you're trying to help them experience. When we think about framing, we have to think about who's watching this video and why. So if you're talking to the audience, you want to make sure you're looking at the audience. But if you're talking to an interviewer, you've seen this a lot, you'll want to look slightly off camera so that the person viewing you can feel like they're part of the experience, and maybe they're like an audience member, but they're not the person being addressed or spoken to. The other thing to remember when you're doing video and framing is, where is this video going to go? So for example, this video, I might crop it and make it friendly for Reels or YouTube Shorts or whatever. And I want to make sure that I have enough headroom and space in my frame to be able to do that and crop. So what's an easy way to make sure that we're framed right and also that the camera's steady? Well, the safest, easiest thing to do is to shoot wide. So give yourself lots of room on each side. And then when you get to editing, or if someone else is doing the editing, you could tell them to crop in on just the part that you want. As far as keeping the phone steady, and I could see this being true if you're doing some sort of man on the street testimonial or interview at a conference, or you're doing some sort of quick video interview with your friends, is you holding the phone and them standing there. I would recommend a few things. A tripod, number one, if you have access to it, is always going to be the best thing because it's literally made to keep the camera stable. Laying your phone or a camera on a shelf or even on a stack of books somewhere is going to do you a big favor so your arms don't get tired, but also so that your viewer isn't distracted by a shaky camera. So you've mastered lighting, you've mastered audio, and you've mastered framing. And by making sure that those three elements are perfectly on point, you're going to be head and shoulders above a lot of videographers that I've seen out there. But when would it actually make sense for you to bring in a professional? A good professional should always come with at least these two benefits, which are saving you time and high quality work. If you're trying to create a video for your new brand and you're trying to sell, you're gonna wanna make sure that you're representing yourself in the best possible way. Why? So that your customers or your viewers or your target audience gets the best impression of who you are. The other reason to bring in a professional would be because the stakes could be pretty high for you or your company or your friends or whatever. When there are higher stakes, that means you want to risk less. And less risk means less room for mistakes. Professionals know what to look for because they're experienced in it, and so they can eliminate mistakes pretty quickly. They've also made a lot of mistakes and know what to watch out for to avoid those things again. One of my other favorite reasons to bring in a professional is to be a creative partner. You know, professionals have probably been around your industry, and the coolest part about that is you can pay them to be your creative partner and bounce ideas off of them. Companies like mine, we help people with scripts all the time, outlining what their year of video should look like, and social media content. A professional should have give and take to make your life easier, and ultimately, if you're a marketer, to make you the rock star of your marketing team. Because you're putting out amazing content consistently, and you're measuring that success as we mentioned before. So give yourself a pat on the back for hiring that videographer to help out. So in a professional setting, ultimately, you're going to save time and increase quality, and even have a creative partner who understands your industry very well, or is at least willing to, and will help you where you can have all the knowledge, but they have all the skill, and you can meet together and accomplish that. So here's the big takeaway. If you plan and follow those simple techniques that we talked about, you can create stunning, amazing videos on your own. And when you're ready to scale or save time or increase that quality, hiring a professional can make a huge difference in what you're doing. Oh yeah, and we never really talked about what to do once you've filmed it all and it's in your camera. But we're gonna save post-production for another video. And I really hope that you'll help this small community grow and become a real part of it. You're welcome here. We're gonna cover a lot, but I hope you'll stick around because it's gonna be fun. See you on the next one. Peace.